It is June 21st, 2023, and we are here in Lisbon talking with Steve McElmeel about the Meyers farmstead, which is on the National Register and is a local park initiative. Steve, for the record, would you give us your name and would you spell it?
It's Stephen J. McElmeel, and it's Stevenj and MC capital ELMEEL.
Born when?
May 1st, 1941,
Good. Born where?
in Monticello, Iowa.
What did your family do?
My dad was a mechanic, auto mechanic, and mother was a homemaker and did house cleaning, papering, painting, whatever. She was busy also.
Okay.
I grew up in Hopkitten.
Oh,
Born in Monticello, but I grew up in Hopkitten.
the Lennox College.
Yes, that's where I went to school.
Hey, very good. Where did you go to school beyond Lennox?
No.
Okay.
Well, it was actually called Hopkitten High School then. It wasn't Lennox. Lennox quit probably in early 40s,
Okay.
and then they moved the school from the west end of town to Lennox College campus.
What did you decide to do once you finished school?
Well, I worked for my dad for 2 years, and off and on while I was in school. And then in 1960, I was getting very close to being drafted, and rather than take my chances on what they'd find for me to do, I enlisted and spent 3 years on a Nike missile base in New Jersey. So
That's an unusual deployment or assignment.
it's unique, and it was one of those where it was kind of a special deal to get. They took 18 of us from Iowa and shipped us to New Jersey, and we spent our time there. Some of them went on to Korea or Germany or whatnot, but I was in school, in Corps of Engineer school, midway through my tour there, and I missed the deployment overseas. So
When you got your 2 years,
3
done,
years.
3 years done, what did you decide to do?
Well, I get out and I decided I didn't want to be a mechanic anymore, at least for hire, so I went to Cedar Rapids looking for a job. I interviewed at Collins, and ended up they weren't really hiring that day, so then I by chance went to Square D and ended up there, and checked at the employment office there, and they said they weren't hiring. So then I went and talked to a friend, Army friend, and he suggested I go to Job Service of Iowa and see if they had anything. Well, I went there and took a bunch of tests, and 3 o'clock in the afternoon they said, well, we think we got an opening for you, a place you can apply. And I said, where's that? Square D. And I said, well, I was down there this morning, you weren't hiring. He said, oh, they will now. So lo and behold, I got a job in one day at Square D, and worked there 3 years, and then decided to move on to Iowa Electric Light and Power, and I ended up retired from there after 30 years, but then worked another 12 for them as a contractor. So 42 years for it's Alliance.
So we're doing a big circle around what we're talking about today. Is when did you get into farming?
Well, there's one of those deals that I got married in 64, January 64, and we lived in Cedar Rapids for a little over a year. And we always were looking for a small town to set our roots, if you will, and go to all of the little towns around Cedar Rapids, and really didn't find anything. But it turns out that my wife knew the priest here in Lisbon, and went visiting him, and ended up he pointed out a couple of houses that maybe we could look at. Anyway, we didn't pick either one of them, but we found another one that, after we had viewed the one house in Lisbon, we were going around the corner, and my wife saw the house that we ended up buying and said, if that house ever comes up for sale, that's the one we're going to buy. And that would have been in like October, November of 64. And by golly, the next spring we come out and here's a big for sale sign on that house, and we were going to buy it come heck or high water. So anyway, that's how we ended up in Lisbon.
And the house that you bought was not on this estate?
No, it's up on the other end of the property.
And it looks like there's sort of a ridge up there, or kind of a hill?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So when you moved here, did you stay with Electric Light and Power? Or?
Yes. Well, I moved here. I was with Square D. In
Okay.
'67, I went to work for Electric.
Okay. What brings you to the farm? What gets you involved in farming in general?
Well, my wife came off the farm. I didn't, but I spent all my summers in my grandpa's place in Worthington, so I ended up, had some farm roots, but my wife was the one that was the key player in it. We ended up, there was a lot next to our house that we were able to buy, and then that really wasn't enough room for us, so I used to go and talk to John Meyers at his house on Sunday afternoons, just visit with him. He was just like my grandpa. He was a lot of history, but anyway, I was after him to sell me a piece of ground. So he was resistant to doing it because I think he thought I was going to develop it or something, you know. But anyway, we developed a good relationship, and he said, okay, I'll sell you an acre. So we bought an acre from them, which went down just to the corner of the pond now, would have been the 1 acre. And then my wife decided, you know, we need some sheep for the kids to take care of so that they can make some money. So we rented a trailer and from U-Haul and went to Bellevue and bought 3 ewes. And that was the beginning of our sheep deal. And so we got by with them for a long time on just that acre, but then we kept thinking, you know, we need more pasture. So I went and talked to John, and I said, John, would you consider renting your around the farm buildings and whatnot? Our sheep, you know, would try to clean it up for you, you know. And he said, oh my goodness, yes. He said, I'd love to do it, have somebody do that, because I'm after the renter, which was just renting the ground. So it was full of horse weeds and everything else, so we tightened up the fence and turned the sheep loose, and before long it was just slick as a whistle, because they would eat about anything. So anyway, that was the beginning of that. Well, then later on, it was in '80, we started thinking, well, maybe we could buy some more ground from him. Well, in that time, he had passed away, and he had left this whole farm to his daughters. It was 2 of them. And so we talked to them and were able to strike a deal to buy the farm and the buildings and whatnot. And so that was the beginning of our farming, you know. And like a lot of things, I moved into it. I didn't know a lot about farming, but it's like a fella used to say that he went farming. He didn't know much either. So he would just drive around the neighborhood and see what everybody else was doing, and then say, well, maybe I'll go do it. But that's kind of what we ended up doing. So
now you've introduced John Meyers and his daughters. Tell us a little bit about who John Meyers was. We'll back up to the history of it, but who is John Meyers?
Well, John Meyers was a pretty key player in town from what I understood, you know, that he did a lot of things for the town. I guess he was on the school board, he was on the city council, he had a business in town, several businesses, and he used to talk different times about, he had farms all over eastern Iowa, and I think at one time I heard he had 7 farms, and he used to talk about the cattle he raised. Up around Cascade he would raise cattle, and then he had, my neighbor would talk about during the war, they would move those cattle and whatnot, and my neighbor Fred Noss was talking about one of the times he drove for John was that the speed limit during the war was 35 miles an hour, and he came through Langworthy and the cops stopped him for speeding with the truck, you know. But just another anecdote John used to pass on, but I have really enjoyed visiting with him, you know, I tried to get some history of the farm from him, and he would, you know, talk about, well, the pond that's there that we built is upstream from where the original one, but there was a big pond further down in the flat, the way John described it to me, next to the road. But that was a fairly good pond, apparently, because he said when the circus came to town, they'd bring the elephants over and they'd take a bath in this pond. So anyway, it was just another anecdote that he would tell about anyway.
Let's take a step back and talk about his father and his parents. Who were they?
Well, as I understand, Jacob was his father, and he lived in the house across the road here. And he, of course, was the original Meyers that owned the place. And then in some of the history I've read since, John, when he got married, he married a farm girl from between here and Mount Vernon, and lived in the house across the street here then. That was my understanding after they got married. But when I was talking to John, he lived over next to the city park. But,
So you knew John, but you did not know Jacob.
no, no.
Just physically say a little bit about John himself. Big man,
Little man.
German.
Little man. He was wiry like my grandpa. He was probably, you know, maybe 5'8", 5'10", like that. Well, wiry fella, you know, and in good health. He lived to be in his 90s,
Good health.
95 or 6, something, I don't know. But anyway, when I'd be negotiating with him or that, you know, we'd walk around the farm here and whatnot, and he'd climb over fences, you know, just like a youngster. And he used to say, "Oh, I used to really be able to get over." I had a heck of a time, you know. And here he is, 90 plus years old, and I say, "John, you have no problems, you know. You're doing very, very well." But he lived alone a long time. His wife had passed away, and he lived alone. So Sundays I used to enjoy just going over visiting with him and getting to know him, and he got to know me, and we had a good relationship. So.
Any other sort of little anecdotes and little stories about him? Climbing over fences was one thing. Was he a carpenter? Did he work on the buildings?
I don't know that was so much. I think the years that I knew him, he just mainly rented out. And according to his obituary, he retired from farming early 40s. So all of this was rented then after that, you know. But like I said, when we moved here in '65, there was a person's, I don't know the first name, but Bowers had a dairy operation here. And they had a hired man, and I just remember the cows would come up along our back fence, and this fella, I can't remember his name, but he'd come after the cows at night and morning, and he'd be whistling down the pathway there and come and get the cows. But they only lasted, I think, 2 or 3 years after we came here. But in those days, I didn't spend, you know, or didn't pay that much attention to what was going on. But
How about this open area that we're here right now? What was here? Just pasture?
well, it was part of the farm building area. You know, there was a machine shed right up here by this double gate, a good size. I got a picture of it.
Good.
But when they added on to Meyers Meadow, and see, that's another era of Meyers' benefit to the town. They donated ground to Meyers Meadow, which is now it's a 48-unit low-cost housing for the elderly, and they donated all the ground for it. So in turn, it became Meyers Meadow, and they were very happy, you know, that they were recognized for their generosity.
Tell me, we'll walk through the buildings in a while, but just tell me about the buildings in general. When you came here in the early 60s, buildings like this were being torn down, or at the very least ignored and fell down.
Yeah. Well, both my wife and I for some reason, felt they needed to be preserved. So we did a lot of work, painting, and I also had tuck pointing done on there, trying to save it, you know. But the other thing that happened is the roofs that were on the barns were a very old metal roofing that had, the way they were made was tin strips that would hold down one edge and then the other clamped over it. However, somebody in their brightness thought that the center of that thing was flexing, so they put nails in it. And that's what happened. The holes, you know, where the nails were, ended up becoming rotting, and then they would get loose and come off. So we decided that the only way to save them was to keep the roofs in good shape. So we researched and found a place that had good white tin. The old ones that were on there were galvanized, but they had been painted over with black or asphalt or something to try to stop the leaks.
Yeah. Good intent.
Yeah. So anyway, when we tried to preserve the appearance of the barns with white roofing, and it did add. And like some of the barns already had some of that newer steel, so it really didn't change the appearance that much, and that was our intent.
Did John help you with the expenses?
No, that was after we had bought it.
We
did all of that afterwards. No.
And let's put that date in the sand. What year did you buy it?
It would have been, we got it in April, May of 1981.
Okay.
And from then on is when we tried to.
And that was from the daughters, not from John himself.
Yes.
Right. So tell me, what other buildings were there that have since passed or gone? You mentioned the machine shed.
Machine shed was one of them, and there was, I don't know of what it was exactly, but up in this area where that tree is, there was like, whether it was a chicken house or a hog house or what it was exactly, but when we bought it, it was, someone had stripped the siding off of it, and it was just laying in a pile, and it ended up, I ended up burned it to get rid of it. But there was also like a cistern there, or a big concrete containment of some kind, and I always thought that might have been a place where they stored the milk when,
Could be. Yep.
I don't know, some kind of a cistern, but anyway, that we ended up.
So I can remember there being mine families, there were wood, but water was cold. And brought the water up through a pump, and it was cold enough to keep it until the milkman came. Any other buildings you can think of? The Bruder house you burned down, you said?
Well, yes, it was basically down when we got here, but I just got rid of the wood that was left. There was another shed just to the west of this corn crib machine shed here. It was small, and it was built with the same concept of, there had a place for hogs underneath the thing, and of course it had openings in the floor to where they could throw corn down, and there was a door they could throw corn out onto a platform there, feeding platform. And that one, the foundation got so bad there was nothing holding it. It seems like the foundations tended to move to the south. I don't know what it was about.
What's over there?
Somehow or other, that's what happened, and the same thing happened to the well. See, there's a spring-fed well here. It's only about 15, 20 feet deep, but it's always had water in it, and that's the water we use for the livestock.
Sure.
But it was what was used for water down here. We had electricity and a pump. But
where did you keep your sheep?
The sheep were in this big barn here, and it was on
hay barn.
Hay barn, yes. It was on the south side of that. Had an area. It's like in thirds. The building was set up in thirds, and I think originally they fed livestock, cattle or something in there, because it's the floor to the north is all concrete, and then they had like slats for, like if you're feeding hay through there for the livestock to eat into the center, which is where I think the hay was stored. And then on the south side, there was the same deal.
And there was a hay up in a mow that was tossed down, or?
There was no mow there. It was just all flat. And that's where we stored hay too.
Sure.
We just stacked it in that open area and then fed the sheep out of that. And then later on, we had horses. I had one horse, and she had 2 daughters, and we kept one of her daughters.
So these were pleasure horses,
Yes,
not draft horses.
yeah, they were my daughter's endeavor and my wife's endeavor to get those. I didn't need, the taking of a horse, but I ended up with it.
Yeah. How about that?
Yeah, and the sheep was the same deal, dealing with sheep.
What was the largest herd that you had?
Oh, I think we were up to 20 ewes at one time, and it was about all we could handle, feed.
And your wife undertook sort of an interesting educational project?
Oh yes, it educated me on taking care of them, but
And let's give
we
me
learned it's just like a lot of things. You don't know what you don't know, and we learned a lot about taking care of them and what was needed for care of them, and cutting off tails and the worming exercises and the shearing and
all those pleasant things.
yeah.
What was your wife's name? We didn't call
Just-
her.
Her wife's name was Doris,
Okay.
and she died in December 24th of 2016. So up until that time, we were a partnership, big time. So
And she also did some educational things with schools?
she worked as a school board secretary for 10 years.
Okay.
And then moved on, and she got into the Longaberger basket business. If you ever heard of Longaberger, that was her thing. She got into that in '88 and had it right up to the day she died. So.
But she also brought school kids out here.
Oh yes, she knew the teachers well enough that it would bring the kindergartners over here. It would be a field trip for them when they sheared the sheep. So there would be, I have pictures of the gathering that would be, and the kids, some of them remember to this day, being here, but it was quite an experience from them. I just remember that Dory would say the kids every time, when they were shearing, if they would nick the sheep a little bit and there'd be a little blood, the kids would go, so they had to be, the shearer was very careful, to not do any of that, but that was just part of the shearing, and you nick once in a while. But.
Now you said you quit farming in '92?
Well, actually, probably never have really quit.
Okay.
We scaled back quite a bit on the things, like we put some of it in CRP to kind of preserve the thing, and the farming, I was still working, and it became less fun doing the farming activities, and it turns out the city came to me, said, we want to put this land in the CRP because it's within 2,000 feet of city wells. So we want to preserve the water.
Sure.
And they gave me a pretty good incentive to enlist it in the CRP. So it was in that, even up to the time we sold it to the city, it was still in CRP. So it's been grass for probably 15, maybe 20 years.
Good way to go.
Well, I thought it was a good deal, and we had built 2 ponds there. The first pond we built in mid-70s, and it was a fair-sized pond. And here again, it was something we wanted for recreation, and also it was a water source for the animals and so forth. But then, as luck would have it, the muskrats got into the dam, and we couldn't hold water after that. So in early 2000s, we decided we would rebuild the dam. So the fellow that built it said, well, we won't do anything with the existing one until I build you a new one. So we built another one further downstream and made the thing a lot larger. And then he dug out the old dam, and we used a lot of the dirt to fill in around the buildings because it was so eroded from all the years of livestock that it just needed to be.
Did it have grass cover back then, or was it sort of not prairie but sort of long grass?
Well, it was mixed weeds and grass,
Okay.
and we really worked at reseeding it then to get a good grass on it, you know. And of course, you put most anything on there. We tried alfalfa, clover, and brome, but of course brome becomes a predominant one. But it looks good and it preserves the ground, although they do say it does use a lot of the nutrients in the ground, whereas alfalfa and clover and those will kind of restore.
They're a little bit better.
Yeah, but the brome eventually takes over.
Anything else that grazed out here? I mean, there's a lot of space out here. Got a building that you took down, the brooder house you burned down. Anything else that was here that has come and gone?
Well, we boarded horses for a time.
Which barn?
That would have been right here, this one here. There's horse stalls on both ends of this barn here. And there was also another stall on the east end under that lean-to.
Sure.
And but the rest of it was, the inside was all milk stanchions.
Yeah, I saw the stanchions.
And that was basically it. But we had spaces for horses here, and
did they have a riding paddock, or were they just pleasure horses?
mainly pleasure horses, just a place for them to stay.
Sure.
And to board, you know, and then people would come and take them and they do their rides or whatever, you know. But
any other initiatives, any other thoughts that you had that you did not do?
well, no, I think our other goal was to plant as many trees as we could possible, and that was in that first acre we bought. That was the deal. We put 50 walnut trees in there, and when they're young, the sheep like to eat them too. So they had one of them that would bend the tree over, and then all of the other ones would eat the leaves off of it. So we had to fence them all, of course. But I mean, it was just more anecdotes.
And how did the derecho treat you?
Well, as far as the barns, I felt they came through it very, very well. The biggest thing is that it worked on the roof on this barn. They took a couple panels off of the southwest corner, and it lifted some panels on that corn crib there. But as far as the hay barn, if you will, it really came through pretty much unscathed.
Oh, that's pretty good, because there's a lot of surface area to.
Yes, it was surprising how well it's withstood that, you know. Compared to the tornado damage, we were very lucky, you know. I just remember I spent the derecho time sitting on the side of the road just outside of Cedar Rapids, and I ended up called my neighbors, the Horiks, and said, "Hey, is there anything left down there?" And they said, "Well, from what we can see, is not too bad." So I came home, and lo and behold,
There you are.
it was.
When you put hay up in the hay barn, or the hay barn, I guess we're calling it, did you load it through the door up on top, or did you just toss it up?
We had an elevator
Okay.
that we could get it up in there. We'd open this big door and shoot it up the top, and then just stack it and move it. You know, it would be clear full of hay.
Small bales.
Yes.
Well, I mean, if it holds that, if it's full of bales, that means it's still pretty sturdy.
Oh, yes.
It's a lot of weight.
Well, it's sitting on the ground, though, so there was no weight on
Okay, very
anything.
good.
All of that is ground floor.
Okay.
There's no found. This one here is different. This one's got a wood floor all over the top here.
But you didn't put hay bales in there.
No, we put loose hay at times. You know, if we didn't, the baler didn't come in time or something, we'd just pick it up and put it in here loose. And that's what that loft was built for. It was not a solid floor in there when we bought it. It was opening, you know, the boards were staggered so that air, and it was meant for loose hay. And there was a hay fork
Yep.
came out the end, and they loaded hay out of here, did it up there with their big clamshell, and take it in and dump it on both sides.
Okay.
But then in the middle is where they stored their machinery.
Some of my most unpleasant memories of a farm are unloading hay in a barn.
Yep, yep. Couldn't be any place hotter.
Itch.
Yep, he agrees.
What have we not talked about, Steve?
Well, let me see. I think in the big scheme of things, I often, as we got older, thought, what would we like to happen to these barns? And at one time I even mentioned to my wife, well, maybe we'd see if the city would buy them or something, or if there's any interest or whatnot, because we certainly had enough developers interested in this property with the pond and the trees and all of that. But neither one of us wanted that to happen. We had spent our lifetime trying to preserve the thing. And lo and behold, I get a call one time from the city clerk, Connie Meyers, that wanted to know if this property would be for sale. They were going to go for a grant to develop park land in the city. And initially, they wanted like 10 acres out of the 15 that we had here in this area. And in the end, when it came time to write the grant, she said it would look a lot better if we just had the whole package, So I talked to my kids. I said, hey, I have 4 kids, 3 girls and a boy. They all live out of state except one. And, hey, would you be interested in coming back here? Should we sell it or whatever? And they said, Dad, not likely that we'll be back. So anyway, ended up, I went back to the city and I said, yeah, it's for sale. So they said, well, what do you want for it? And they said, we budgeted X for it. And I said, well, that's a reasonable price. We'll take it. So the rest is history. And it was written into the agreement that this would always remain a park, that it will never be developed, and it will be for the public use. And we had hoped that they would have the wherewithal to preserve the barns for future.
Sure.
And it's so heartening to know there are people that are interested in this old barnsteads and want to preserve it for the future. And lo and behold, there's some people here in town that are very instrumental in making that happen. And I can't say enough about what they've done and how they do it to promote this endeavor and to get it registered on the National Historic Place. I mean, this is big time stuff. And then go to silos and smokestacks and you folks, all of that is tremendous, more than you could envision. So I'm just so appreciative, and we are all appreciative of it.
And what do you think Jacob Meyers, not John, but Jacob Meyers, even though you didn't know him, let's take John, you knew John. What do you think John would approve? Oh,
absolutely. They were so civic-minded that, and it's the same thing that we feel about Lisbon, we just hope that we'd live here long enough that we'd be considered a native, but we haven't made it yet.
No. You've got another 30 or 40 years.
But, it is such a blessing. We just love the town, always have. And I think that's what I told Connie when she asked. I said, if anything's good for Lisbon, I'm for it. Whatever it takes to promote Lisbon. So.
You need good people to back you up, though.
Yeah, well, that's what it takes. It seems like it's like a lot of things. You need movers and shakers that make things happen. And like I say, we're blessed with good historical preservation people and people that won't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to turn the camera off. Okay, we're back, and Steve is going to talk about a project called Pleasant Grove.
okay, well it developed when we built the second pond. As they were excavating for that, they come up with this huge boulder. And they said, you know, what do you want to do with this? And I said, well, let's put it on the bank here. And I said, it could be a place mark for it. It's something that is unique, you know, in Lisbon to see a boulder that size.
And where was this located?
It was located in the pond where it was excavated, and then we moved it over to the east side of the pond.
Okay.
And then later on, wife and I were talking, and I said, you know, really, that's got a nice surface on the one side. Maybe we should engrave something on there, you know. And my vote was, you know, I'm 3/4 Irish, and I said, well, maybe an Irish Glen or Irish something. She said, no. I said, well, then what's your vote? She says, I think it should say Pleasant Grove. And it turns out that is the church that we were married in a place called Placid, which is in south of Epworth and north of Cascade. So it became Pleasant Grove was engraved on there. And I got my stamp on it with the clover leaf on there of the Irish. But anyway, after that then, when Connie and I were talking about this whole deal, she said, do you want naming rights for the park? And I said, well, as far as I'm concerned, it's already named. It's got a name right down there by the pond, Pleasant Grove. So, you know, there was, in the meantime, she retired from her position and the new regime came in, and they had no idea of that history part of it. So there were a lot of iterations on what they're going to call the park, you know, from, I know, Meyers Farmstead and Meyers Park, and, you know, and I kept saying, you know, we need to get back to Pleasant Grove because that's what we had agreed to. So sooner or later, we got that accomplished. So now it's called Pleasant Grove Heritage Park, is the final derivation of it. So that's how that came about, you know, and it seems like the wives always have a better idea on how things ought to be. You know, mine's kind of, you know, helter-skelter, but
I wasn't going to mention that at all.
yeah.
More to that end?
Well,
okay, we are on the south side of the property now.
yes.
What do you see? Let's go with the cistern that you're standing on right now. What is that?
This would have been the watering tank, and there was a pump here when we came here. They had their own water system. Yep. And that filled the tank, and then in later years, I think they electrified it, but yep, it was mainly, but this is a spring-fed well. It's only about, at most, 30 feet deep, and it's hand-dug, and it's lined all the way down with rock, all the way around, and it replenishes itself. An interesting thing about this location also is that prior to the tornado that went through here in 1908, there was a power plant right across the road here, and it used water from the spring for cooling the boilers and made steam.
Sure.
But anyway, that was destroyed, so the spring still provides water going down the creek, but also it puts water in here too. Now, I don't know where that spring comes from, but it replenishes itself. There is a limit to how much you can pull out of that well, but
Never had a windmill.
not in my knowledge, but
Sure.
I think there was a foundation there for it,
Sure, okay.
but not in my time that I had seen. But
Building across the way, Steve, what is that? What is it?
This building
Yep,
here was a corn crib. There was corn crib storage, you know, bins on both sides for ear corn. and there was a hole in the roof there where they put an elevator in, and they would be able to steer it would have been corn on the cob. It
Yep.
wasn't shell corn, and they could steer it into one side or the other side for storage for the winter. In the middle was machinery, I presume,
Okay.
and then underneath on the south side, hogs were underneath there. And there's something very unique about that. They claim that came from Pennsylvania, that concept of having livestock under the building.
I've never seen an example of one. I know that people talk about it,
Yeah.
but that makes it unique.
That's what, and the lady that did the research on these, I don't know if you've read that,
Yep,
but she felt that was very unique, the way they did that, and it was something that came from Pennsylvania, or at least.
So let's just review. So at the top level, there was an elevator bringing ear corn up.
Yeah, it would be sitting out here somewhere,
Yeah, right.
and they would load into it, and it would go through the top, and then they had a chute that you could divert it to one side or the other.
And then they had a feeder chute to bring it down to the hogs.
Right. Yep. And sometimes they would go down, feed them inside, or they had a door on the side that they could open and put it out on that floor there. So.
Okay. And that answers all the major questions except how do they get the manure out?
Well, with great difficulty, because a lot of the times, and even we found when we were raising sheep, that really adds up when you add bedding and them in there, and if you don't stay after it, it becomes a very big problem.
You go on a vacation for a week and you got a pile of it.
Yep, yep. So that was always a fun time too, you know. But,
what sort of shape is that building in, to your knowledge?
well,
Was it?
it withstood the derecho, and there's people that are very concerned about the safety of these structures, but I would have no concern getting in or out or around any of them. But I don't know why they're so hesitant to allow people inside, but I don't question
insurance, it's liability.
Yep, it's their property, and they could do whatever. But
anything else about the building? How much? What did you use it for?
I mainly used it just for storage. When we bought the property, there was a fellow that was using it for masonry storage. He had stones and whatnot that he used as part, it's a local businessman that did bricklaying and whatnot. And it was a sand pile and a gravel pile out here, and eventually he moved to a different location, and we just took it over and cleaned it up then. But
when did you put the roof on or the siding on?
well, that would have been, the siding went on probably about 2005, 6, 7, somewhere in there, to my recollection. This side here was damaged by the runoff, and it didn't dry, and it rotted the side of it. It became very bad. It needed to be redone, but in the interest of getting it protected as it was, they put the siding on it, and it was not a preferred way, but that's what it was.
I see limestone walls over here. Where do you get your limestone? All local limestone?
I think so. Same with here. There's certain parts of the buildings here that were limestone. I presume it came locally, or Stone City, the big supplier of stone.
Yeah.
But a lot of that, John Meyers talked a little bit about that in one of his visits with his daughter, and that's recorded too. I don't know if you've seen that, Ann, but he describes these barns and part of it and how they evolved.
And what was his memory of that?
Of
what did John tell you?
Well, mainly it was about this barn is what he talked about. But really, I don't remember much about that one.
This one's kind of a poor cousin by comparison to this building.
Yes.
I'm going to turn that off.
there, but they went out to the outside. But you can see some.
So the openings that we see, 1, 2, 3, 4,
What-
are just entry points
Right.
for
Yeah.
hogs.
And they only go in that far, you know.
Okay, all right. So that yeah,
They don't go in the hole underneath.
up as far as the door
Yeah,
there.
it's a door.
Yeah,
Yes.
right, sure. Okay. And you managed to save for aficionados like myself a manure. I don't know what they call it. Manure bucket
Yeah.
I
It's
don't-
a carrier, manure carrier.
carrier. Yeah, it was always that point of pride at the end of the church service. Well, Clarence, what did you do this week? Well, I've got a new manure system. And boy, everybody was, Clarence is doing pretty well, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And he says his back likes it.
Yeah. Yeah. This one was the track inside. They had just like our little railroad.
Yep.
You know, would go along and either side because they had.
Could they pull it, or did they have a little winch on it?
Well, at my grandpa's, we just pulled it.
Yeah.
You know, and then we go outside, and then they have the manure spreader outside, and they dump it in.
Oh, another unique experience, running the manure spreader with the chains off.
Yeah. Yeah. In the wintertime.
Oh. Bob, you're younger than I am. You climb under the manure spreader
Yeah.
and fix the chain.
Yeah. There's also something unique out here where that fence post has got a date on it up there.
Yeah, we were looking at that.
Oh, you got that, okay.
What is the date?
Well, it's like, what, 1908 or 5? 19, somewhere in there.
Let's look about that. So that would be the tornado.
No, well, I don't know. It would have been when they put those concrete posts in.
Yeah.
There used to be concrete posts all the way along here, and very few of them left.
Okay, we're
Yeah, that's new.
We'll make sure that we talk to somebody about that.
yeah, it's strange how it came off because it rippled the next one too.
Uh-huh.
Well, that whole side was.
Yes,
You
and then
can
it's-
see where
yeah.
it rippled was laid over after
Yep.
the derecho.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
rolled
And then
over,
they
wasn't it?
they rolled it back and anchored it, but apparently they didn't get it anchored well enough.
When the derecho hit, our nomination for the Meyers Farmstead Historic District had just been approved
Oh, wow.
at the state level and had just been passed to the federal for their final stamp of approval. We were just on pins and needles.
You wrote him a note saying no take back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, right in this area was a smaller building. It was probably about 20 by 20.
Okay.
And it looked like it had just had corn in it. It was also had facilities for ear corn, and it had space underneath it, just like this shed here, for the hogs to be in it. But the foundation got so bad in it that the whole south side of it had fell down, and it was about like that one there, where it just started moving south for some reason or other. And it got to the point where, to me, it was a hazard because the kids were climbing around and being in there, and I was afraid somebody was going to get hurt. The structure itself was in pretty good shape, but the foundation was gone. The whole north side of it had caved in. The south side was going. The only thing that was good was like on the west side.
So your theory on the south-leaning slope here, I mean, we're on a major slope here.
Yeah.
Is it just the subsoil is,
I think it's something about on the north side doesn't dry out, and the freeze thaw just pushes it. Like, you know, there was a stone and deal around the well there, and it did the same thing. It just moved south, and I don't know how or what
Oh.
phenomena. You know, it's just like that one. It's starting to want to lean.
well,
So-
let's take a look at the gable bar quick, because that's a beautiful building. Yeah,
And the lean-to was added on, as you can see.
Yep.
It's just a different deal. I suspect, in my own estimation that they had something like breeding bulls in there or something, because it was
Sure.
a certain area that was separate from everything else. I don't know. It had a dirt floor.
Could be.
I don't know
Yeah.
what else it could have been.
Sure.
I didn't like horses. The horses were in the other end.
There's a lot of space up there, though. I mean, how many acres of hay bales could you get in there?
Oh, you can get a lot in there. A lot of.
Working from the ground up, as
Yeah.
you said. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the windows, because the windows are tilted in. What unique feature was that?
Well, that was the deal. They're actually made that way for ventilation,
Okay.
and they just have their own framework, and they'll just tilt back so far, and that's it. When we got it, there was probably 2/3 of them that were, the panes were gone, rotted away, and whatnot. And we took the liberty of getting something maintenance-free. Now, they were recycled plastic windows with good glass in them, and they're maintenance-free. So I took the easy road, and they look good, you know, and they
Still there.
That's what John used to tell me another story about how he never painted the back side of the buildings because he only painted the roadside. You know, so
And it served him well.
that's right. So anyway, that's another one of his stories.
Anything else about? I mean, the barn we know was used as much as anything. Maybe the feeder, the hay barn was used a lot as well.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
those two buildings were.
fully
So-
used.
Yeah.
An interesting thing also on that barn there, originally, and if you look at the tornado pictures, that was inset. That wall there was added later.
Oh,
It
okay.
was an overhang. If you look at the structure inside, it overhang probably 10, 15 feet. It was all open along there.
Okay. All right.
And
Yeah.
then you look at those pictures in Tornado, and that's what it was. It was open, and it's in later years, somebody made another row of stanchions for dairy. in
Well, I
that.
mean, dairies got bigger, you demanded, and you.
Yep.
Yeah, there were a lot of stanchions in there. I remember just looking at them. And,
Yeah, it's on both sides.
Yeah, on both sides.
I think they would have had it, you know, maybe on the one side, and they decided they wanted to expand. So they said, well, we got this open area, let's close it in and put the trough there and the stanchions and,
Put a manure gutter in there,
Yep.
and you're ready to go. Yeah.
yeah. So
Okay.
I always thought that was kind of unique. You know, you see those offsets in some buildings, but
Yeah.
it's in a lot of cases it's wasted space.
So we're talking about a lot of, at least some of the architecture came from Pennsylvania. Did they have a carpenter come out from Pennsylvania to do this sort of thing, or was it just in somebody's head that they?
Well, I suppose some of those things would have been their nature, or they saw it somewhere else, or they saw it, you know, carried it from Europe, the concept.
Sure.
It's like a lot of things, you know, these traditions come with the people.
Yeah, certainly is the case.
It just becomes their way of life, and that's the way they do things, you know, and it has their own good ideas on what works and what doesn't work.
I've heard it. The old Germans never had a bad idea. Yeah, that's true.
You can see all the whitewash over the years that they.
Yep. How many stanchions had at max? How many stanchions were there?
I don't know.
2, 3,
20 maybe total?
Yeah, 10 aside. And there's nothing that goes back this way.
Yes.
Oh, so they're more that way.
Well, not stanchions,
Oh,
no.
okay,
This
sure.
is where the milk was stored.
Okay, yeah.
And you can see the inspection thing on the wall here.
Hold on a second. Let me get my body to go that way.
So that's composite.
Yep. Milk jugs. We thought it was really neat, you know, maintenance, no pain.
Did the old ones look like that?
The same deal.
Just like that? Yeah.
They were made to replace.
So Steve, quickly, what do we think these are here?
This certifies this building has been, I think it's part of the, what does it say? Distributing that white paint
Yep,
they
okay.
use for,
Did they-
whoops,
Well,
no, you want that picture?
we got it regardless.
Yeah.
Uh,
What is it, 64?
yes.
The
Now,
rest of them, some of them went off, but
sure, now that whitewash,
Whitewash, yeah.
right, was
it's
prescribed.
like a line. I
Yeah,
think it
right.
was a line base.
Yep, you're actually absolutely right.
And
And,
there's the trolley track.
yeah. I'm going to assume that the trolley track is on there. I'm going to pull it back a little bit. There we go. And they reinforced with some metal.
Right.
But those are, over here, is what the original braces were.
Yeah, so you can see the original wall
Yep.
studs apparently there.
What do you think, what kind of wood is that?
I would
Cottonwood?
imagine oak, I don't know.
Yeah, because I
See how
know.
it's all hand hewn?
That's right.
Oak or walnut, I'd say.
Oak or walnut, okay. The wood I like best is cottonwood, because once you got it up and it's set, you can't put a nail in it.
Yeah,
It's that,
oak is the same way.
yeah.
Once it gets 100 years old, it's pretty hard.
Look at the size of them beams, how long they are. Over there, the
Yeah,
same thing, that's
same.
what, 12, 14-inch beam. And all of these other ones are logs that are just hewn down to
Just-
two flat sides.
Yep.
Oh, it is just fantastic to. And there's the drinkers for the water, they
Yep.
had water for them, and then this one had a milking pipeline too. And they had the machine down there was the vacuum pump for the
Oh,
milkers.
sure. Let's get down a little bit lower here. There we go. And a pretty crack in that wall at the far end.
Yeah, more of that headed south.
That-
I don't know.
You gotta come up with a
Explanation.
southern movement
Yeah.
theory.
Yeah.
This one seems to bow in the middle, higher on both ends, maybe higher on south end, I don't know. But there's right over the alleyway, there's a bow there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't have barn dances in here anymore.
Are you filming?
Oh, I had,
Are you filming?
Yes. Okay, hold on. Let's take a break. Okay, Steve, we're looking at the silo now, so tell us what you know about that.
well, as I understand, the silo itself, there was an enterprise in Anamosa that made the staves for these silos, and they built silos all over the country, but I don't know what vintage this would be, but
Looks to me to be 20s.
could well
Could be
be.
what would fit.
But when we bought it, there was, as you can see, an outline on the side below that chute
Yep.
that enclosed that lower part, and they could get silage out of there and take it into the barns to feed
Feed
the
it, yep.
livestock. And there was also a big concrete platform went out here that had feed bunks on it. So I think they also took silage
Sure.
and fed out here on this concrete platform.
Put it in a shovel and walked it out, or
Yeah, somehow or other got buckets or some way or other, just manual labor, no doubt.
so
but-
it tilts. It tilts, we think, because it's going south too.
well, that could be. I don't know.
I thought I'd preempt that
Yeah.
argument.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's picked it up for plum yet, but like I say, it's pretty sturdy. Like, our kids always loved to come down here and holler in the silo to hear the echo. And that
Sometimes
was always one of their highlights when they were young.
Life is simple at times.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good shape. Now those with those bands on it, it holds together real well.
Right, and surprisingly, the galvanizing is for all these years is
held up.
pretty darn good, you know. So,
Ah, I see my name up in top.
somebody's,
Well, it could be GCB.
yeah,
Could
yeah,
also be BOB.
yeah, yeah. But
And here you point out, and I'm looking now at that limestone foundation in between the two buildings where they carried out the silage.
yeah.
That's starting to shift a bit
The
as well.
lower part is, in fact, that's a double wall,
Oh, really? Okay.
and the inside wall has already went in.
Yep, okay.
On this side of the ramp and on the other side of the ramp. And it goes back to something keeps pushing those walls. And I always worked on keeping the water away from it as much as possible. You know, adding dirt and when Kurt was rehabbing the barns, he worked on that too, to get that dirt built up so it washes away. And then some of it, the water would run down and run over that lip there and then
Yep.
run down into this lean-to. And there were posts that were holding the roof up, you know,
Yep,
big,
yep.
big long. Well, it had rotted off the bottom of them. So different times I would go down and jack them up and put concrete down to try to, you know, keep the roof secure. But that's what Kurt did as part of the rehab, is he jacked that up to get the roof line back. But you know, you got to do that. You know, you can't do it all at once.
Kurt is who was
Blinks.
Kurt?
Kurt Blinks was the one that did the initial rehab on after the derecho. Is, you know, he was-
208, 209.
Yep.
Yep, gotcha.
And,
that
you
was,
know, fixed the roofs and,
and that was done on the city's nickel,
yeah, insurance.
insurance nickel,
Yep.
not your nickels.
Right. No, the insurance took care of that.
Okay, let's walk. Okay, so this is the feeder barn, or the hay barn.
Yeah.
And first question I ask is, I've seen this before, when they built it, they left breathing spaces between the 12-inch
Yep.
boards.
Yep.
And,
Kept the barn. Yep. It's interesting. We had sheep here.
Mhm.
It was interesting how the moisture didn't build up because it was sealed too tight.
Yep.
It was just enough airflow to keep things, because the sheep were all down there. We had pens over there for lambing, and then they would be here, and then of course the sheep and the horses were in here if need be, if this wasn't full of hay. But yeah, we used to fill hay clear up to the rafters stacked up.
And again, we're looking at old, I suppose, machine hewn
Yeah.
rafters, but nonetheless, old.
Well, see,
old.
this one was reconstructed after the tornado. This building was this is all rehab from.
So this is all 20 or 1908.
1908, 9, after that, because
interesting.
this is all in a pile in the
Sure.
tornado pictures.
Wow.
You know, the foundation would have been left, I think that's part of it, but as far as the main building, it was pretty much trashed.
The good old single lathe plow.
Yeah, yeah, some collector, and the same thing here. I think they're starting their antique collection. Maybe Kurt came up with this, or somebody
Maybe
did.
middle there, yeah, and the plow.
Yeah.
So that's corn shower.
Oh, I don't look if it is.
It's a fanning mill where it gets the chaff off
Chaff,
the seeds
seeds.
and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Big Newton. This is on the other side.
The cleaner, or no, the
This side says Saginaw, Michigan. So
Gipper, the Clipper, something, the Clipper. But anyway, yep, a lot of nights down here. There was a loft over that
okay.
where the loose hay was stored on it.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, some of the beams got dry rot.
Yep.
And they fell down, so we just took the whole loft out. Didn't use it anyway. But you can see the uprights there was where they would, apparently the livestock would come in and they would have hay
Plus.
along there and they could get it. This here was lined the same way with it. It looks like a lot of that got removed when they were in here working. chute.
Yep. I remember those.
Yeah.
Okay, and Steve, as I stand and I point my hand straight north, clearly the south part of that wall is to the left or the south. I don't want to vindicate your theory too much here, but it looks like it's moving south.
I can see. I don't know what phenomenon it is. There must be somebody that could explain to me. Another deal that I found in the barns, the one I tore down, is that hay rack. Have you ever seen that deal that gathers loose hay
Oh, yeah, sure, right.
on the front end of a tractor?
We call it a hay buck.
Is that what it was?
That's what
Yeah,
I
you
know.
went more than I know.
Yeah, and it would pick up not only hay, it would pick up wasps and bumblebees and
Snakes.
snakes.
I suppose,
Oh, yeah, that was great fun.
yeah.
Come on, Sister Mary, let's go out. You can make a round on the wagon. You knew you were gonna get a snake over at that point. Scare the bejeebers out of her.
Ah, you're nasty.
These are just plain old pine trees right here, these raptors. They're nothing special, are they?
That or birch, maybe.
Birch, okay. Even more amazing that they're still here for 100 years plus.
Yeah, it's amazing how
Yeah,
things stand, you know, as long as you keep the roofs tight.
yep.
If the roof goes, they're not gonna be long, because, well, we encountered some of that with the length of time it took to get the roof on this
Okay.
big hay barn, or cow barn.
Okay, we're gonna go back and look at photograph. Any questions that we have, we got him right here. We ask him something he can't answer, we got him pinned in a corner and we'll make him, make it up as we go. Any questions, Ann?
I don't think so. Other than, I think that when they added that lean-to over there, did you understand that they added that lean-to because there's a track system in there?
I don't know
That
if that
carries-
was the reason, or whether that just happened, the track system just went through there.
Went through
I
there.
think it was
Okay.
there before the lean-to.
Sure.
Okay.
Might have added that when they put the silo in, because that's how they brought the silage into
Yeah.
the building, and it's
Yeah.
real
Uh-huh.
close to
Could
the
be.
barn. That's just a
Okay.
guess.
Okay, well, we don't know, not sure what we're gonna get, but we will give it a try. We'll see, it's dark in there,
Yeah.
and yet we've got those gaps, and it provides us with light.
A little backlight, yes.
Yep. Now we had, and I remember we had a chute, a hay chute. So where the loose hay was,
There was one here too, I
Okay.
think, that went down to
To-
between the
yep,
stanchions. And there was also a stairway right there where you could come up from
oh,
the level. It's
Sure.
inside stairway.
yeah, yeah.
Just make sure nobody goes inside.
Well,
Aren't these cool barns? I mean, you know all
Cool-
about
these are cool-
barns.
These are cool barns. Well, I do and I don't, because every carpenter who built barns built them the way he thought they were supposed to be built.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so there are variations. We don't think they're very big ones, but nonetheless, there was a great deal of latitude for custom builders.
yeah.
Okay,
Your family's just got to
Well,
keep up with the property.
we will find out. You can do a lot. If you can just hold it steady. Okay. And this is the first planting of trees in 1978.
Yep.
Got
And
it.
then looking west,
Okay. Just keep turning.
1980.
The storm damage.
And this would have been an '07. There was a tree at the corner of the gate there. Chose to fall down and hit the barn. I don't know if you got that.
Yep, got it.
And this would have been a view, I don't know the exact date, but our horse is right there. But that's just kind of something from the road. And this is another thing my wife
I was gonna
liked,
say
is those wreaths on both ends of the barn. Another one of her grand ideas, and how are we going to do it? So I ended up, you can still see the wire that I had arranged to drop it down, to tie it, and then I'd pull it up
That was a vote of 1-1 that didn't go your way.
Yeah. Well, I usually got outvoted, seems like.
Okay, so now we're getting a little bit more modern.
Yep, this would have been the barn, or that corn crib when it was
Level it out a bit, Steve.
in good, pretty good shape.
There you go. Oh, gotcha. There you go. Hold on. Got it. Good.
Okay, now this is that shed that I had to tear down. This is the south side of it.
Oh, okay.
As you can see, it's moving south.
Oh, yeah.
Gonna wake up in the middle of the night. thinking
And
about
then
myself.
this is the north side of it, which already went south.
Yeah, boy, you can see that, didn't it? Boy, once that limestone collapses,
Yep.
it's worthless.
And this is the machine shed that was up
Up
here
here.
by the double gate.
Right.
And there's the gate shed, so
Very good.
that's where it was. And then this is with the kindergarten girls.
Ah, very good. Okay, got it.
Then that's the elevator. We put the hay up in the
in the
big
barn.
barn.
All three of them. Oh, yeah.
And then this is all of them lined up watching the shearer. This would be a shot from inside looking out. Here's another one with the two, apparently two different classes.
Okay.
Anyway, 91. And then this is another shot of them that I just had stuck in there. And these are our two beautiful animals. This was the mother, and the daughter was Shenandoah. Pretty black horse, dumber than a board, but her mother was the smart one. And this is my wife and oldest grandchild, riding Cherokee. And then this is the sheep, one of them, and two of them actually. This one is called Budger, and this was Snowball.
Yeah.
These are two of the first three that we had, and their offspring.
Got the herd started.
Yep. This is a very productive ewe. Snowball would have good ones, and sometimes twins, but they were just a different breed. They weren't as hardy as Suffolk.
Okay.
We found. And this is another picture of sauerkraut days. A fellow named Bill Ellison stabled the horses for the parade.
For-
Yeah, nice big ones. And this is Shenandoah by herself after her mother died. She was a lost soul. And we finally ended up, one of the Bennett girls bought her and took her down to the stable down south. And this would have been Cherokee close up. And then this is the picture that is interesting. This is on the corner of front yard of my property, my house. This structure was there, and I haven't been able to find the history of it. This was a fellow that lived next door to us when he moved there, named Noss, Junior Noss, and this would have been his grandpa. But it's interesting, the dirt road, and then this, like we talked about before, Zahorik's had some kind of a building on the front yard of theirs, which is across the street, and that tree there lasted a long, long time, a big oak tree.
We did a street light.
Yeah, street light, yeah. See, that was one thing, there's just so many these pictures you pick up, and not so often it's the people, it's the background
Yeah.
that grabs you. And these are just the stories, some of these that are, were in the newspaper.
And I think that Leah compiled those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Those we got.
These are just my ideas of how thing is. And there's other things, timelines that you folks have all generated. I just keep those. But anyway.
Good enough.